Welcome to the Refuse Ordinary podcast. I'm your host, Tamara, and I'm so glad you've decided to join us on this journey of discovering who God is and who we are in Him. We are so excited to share with you today another class from our full-time School of Transformation.
Cool. Well, today's topic, not my will, but yours. Big one. I want to start off with a couple of things. It might surprise you, okay? Accounting. Keyboard, filing, bills. This might surprise you, but I'm actually not passionate about accounting. I know. You were thinking, it's your job. You've been doing it since 2012. Part of your role for the church. Yeah, over 12 years. Oh, gosh. And you think, oh, man, he probably loves going to the office, collecting money, paying bills, going to the bank multiple times a week, doing wire transfers, making sure the lights are on, filing taxes, making reports, making spreadsheets. You probably think, oh, he loves it. He gets up every day to do it. I do get up every day, and I do it every day. But I'll tell you something. It's not what I'm passionate about. It's not what gets me out of bed. Accounting doesn't wake me up in the morning. It fits my personality. It fits my talents, my abilities even. But it isn't necessarily what I dream of. When I'm lying awake at night, I'm not thinking about... Sometimes I'm stressed by the amount of to-dos I have to do. But I'm not dreaming about, can't wait to wake up and open QuickBooks. Check the bank balances. Reconcile reports. That's not what I dream of. Catch me? Spreadsheets, reconciliations. They don't fill me up. They're fine to do, but they're not necessarily what I'm passionate about. Am I willing to do it? Yeah, absolutely. Passion doesn't always relate with will or desire. What you have to do, what you get to do doesn't always mean it's what you're passionate about. I'll tell you another thing. eBay. I do eBay on the side. I started a year ago. I sell online through eBay. I resell. Buy items, resell them. It's become a fun little hobby, but it's also a side business, so I can have some income for my family. We can afford a couple of things as we need to, you know. There's always a cost. The cost sometimes is time, energy, late nights. Takes you away from things, from people, from relationships. There's a cost there, you know, but it's something that I do because I see that there's a reward in it. The reward is I'm willing to pay the cost to get the reward from a side business, which means a little bit more finances to take care of my family. And the hours are nice. They fit around my schedule. I can put as little or as much as I want into it. And for eBay, as much as you put in is what you're going to get out. People do this online. People do this for a full-time living and can make 6+ figures a year doing it. I definitely don't make anything near that doing it. But I've learned a lot over the last year doing it. But I'll tell you something. eBay is not what I'm passionate about. eBay doesn't wake me up in the morning. It's not why I get out of bed to think, oh man, what can I buy today? What can I buy so that I can flip for a profit? It's been frustrating last week because I had like 5 returns. Like, every day it's like someone submitting for a return. No! Why? What's wrong with it? It's fun to go out. It's exciting to go out. There's things about that I really like. It fits my personality. It fits my talents. It fits my abilities. My ability to research. My ability to go out and find, to learn, to do, to organize. Spreadsheets fits that. Tracking income expenses fits that. I'm well equipped to do an eBay side business, but it's not what wakes me up in the morning. It's not what I'm passionate about. Could I live without it? I could live without eBay. I could live without accounting. What about this? Great little hobby of mine. Fantasy sports. You ever heard of fantasy football, fantasy baseball? I kind of use this image, but for me, it's all sports. not just real sports as well as fantasy sports, but baseball, football, sports, fantasy sports. I'm in a fantasy hockey league this year with my brother-in-law. I'm doing okay. You know, it's a fun hobby. It fits my personality. It fits my talents. I'm able to learn. I'm able to do it. It fits some social needs at times, sports in general. But it's not what wakes me up in the morning. It's not why I get out of bed. It's not why I do what I do. I don't go to bed dreaming about what player I can try to trade for. Really? I don't go to bed dreaming about that, you know?
Not every night.
None of these things are bad things. Sports, fantasy sports, eBay, counting, those are all fine things. But they're not necessarily what drive me. They're not necessarily my passions. All right? A couple things are they fit me well, though. They fit kind of who Jesus has made me to be. And there's things in your life, there's lists in your life, things that you do that you're excited about. There's things that you do that you love to do. There's things that you do that you have to do. There's things you do that you choose to do. And there's kind of different categories. And we're going to talk about those a little bit because we're talking about this topic of not my will but yours. And we're going to jump into some verses later on, a lot of them. We're going to look at this topic a little bit. What do you do? How do you reconcile that? You know? What if you find yourself stuck in those things that you're like, don't love to do it. Not what gets me out of bed in the morning, but I have to anyways. You know, what do you do if you're in that place? You know, show of hands if you feel like there's something in your life that kind of fits that. Something that you do that you're like, doesn't drive me, doesn't exactly motivate me or inspire me, but I'm willing. I'm willing to do it. Maybe I have to. Maybe I choose to. Maybe it is a passion. Hopefully there are passions in your life. You know, these things, I could live without them. You know, I do accounting because there's a need in front of me, and I'm assigned to do it. There's a need that presented itself. And guess what? Steve said, hey, Ryan, I want you to do this. Did I know it was going to be a job when I said yes, that it would be 13 years of straight accounting work? I'm not trained and educated in accounting. Let's be honest, it's not certified accounting work. It's more bookkeeping. I wasn't trained in it. I took a year to think of accounting in high school, but I wasn't someone that Steve would go that, he's qualified to do accounting. Here, let's have you do it. No, a need arose. We have D. I think some of you guys blessed D this morning. Or somebody's, yes, women's small group, I think you guys blessed D. Maroon. Good job. And D, so if you don't know D, she works in the accounting office with me. She's 88, going on 89. And 2012, Steve's like, she's recognizing. She's been Steve before the church when he had his construction business. She's been part of the family for 30 plus years, helping to even raise the Orsillo kids at times, taking them to school and stuff. And so she's been a vital part of the church since its inception, doing all the bookkeeping. And for years, she did it without pay even. When the financial crisis happened and there was no money, she would just sacrifice hours because she believed in the mission of the Father's house. Even though she attends a different church, she still believes in the mission of the Father's house. But she's getting older, and she recognized, hey, she's having a hard time with some things, and needs to bring someone in to help. Who can we find? And, he said, it doesn't matter if you're qualified. I know that you're trustworthy. And that's kind of how Steve operates. He doesn't necessarily look for who's most qualified, all those things. He says, who can I trust with this task? A need arose. He said, Ryan, I'd like you to do this. And I said, okay, sounds good. I could even throw Yeovil in there as an example. I managed Yeovil for 3+ years before Katie took it on. I was 25 at the time. And Steve's like, how would you like to run our yogurt shop? And I said, not my passion. Why does passion have anything to do with it? A need arose. Accounting, a need arose. I was assigned to do it. I was asked to do it, and I said yes. There was a need in front of me. I recognized there's a need. I was willing to do it. Why do I have a side business? I recognize there's a need in my life for me to have a side business. And I'm willing to meet that need. I'm willing to lay it down. Trust me, I pray all the time. Lord, do you want me to give this up? Do you want me to give this up? Please. I'm almost sometimes like begging him, just tell me to lay it down. And he hasn't said to yet. But it's on the table. It's not something I have to have. He says, do it, I'm going to do it. If he says, give it up, I'm going to give it up. I play sports. fantasy sports because I recognize there's a social need in my life. And I'd like to meet that social need in my life in different ways. That's one outlet for me. What are outlets for you? They're different. So there's these different needs, but you catch what I'm saying? They're not my passions, but there's needs that arise, and I'm willing to meet them. And so there's things in life that we do because of one of three things. We have to. So like we see a need and we respond to it. That's my definition for have to. I have to do this thing to get this outcome. I've been asked to do it. I have to do it. There's things we do because we choose to. We decide, hey, if I do this specific thing versus not doing it, I'm going to decide to do this versus not doing it. I'm going to choose to do it regardless of how I feel about it, what I think about it, whether I'm driven to do it or not. I'm going to choose to do it. And some things can be cross-category. Some things can be have-tos and choose-tos and want-tos. But there's things we do because we choose to do it. It'd be better for me to do this because I recognize there's a reward or there's a consequence. Right? If I do this thing, there's a reward to do it. I'm going to choose to do it. If I don't do it, there might be a consequence for my inability to do it, so I'm going to do it because I don't want the consequence. You with me? Yeah. So there's things like that in life. Then the third thing is we want to. These are the things we're excited and passionate about doing. Things we actually like maybe dream about or have vision for that motivate you, that pump you up, get you out of bed in the morning. Those are the things you're like, man, I can't live without these things. I want them. And that's what passions are. They're the things you can't live without. What are the things that you can't live without? And there's some obvious answers. But for me, obviously first and foremost is Jesus. I cannot live without Jesus. My life would be utter chaos and turmoil without Jesus. Now I recognize, hey, maybe I'm gifted and I have some abilities that would help me to be successful in different areas in my life. Maybe without Jesus, I can maintain some image of success for a bit, but I know over time, spiritually, like death. There's going to be spiritual death in my life, which over time will cross over into my physical life, my relational life, my emotional life. And so I know that I cannot live without Jesus. I can't. I'm passionate for Him. I want to know Him. I want to be around Him. And I know I've gone through moments in my life where it was like more passionate and less passionate. There have been times where I've been lukewarm and I've been excited, I've been warm, I've been hot, I've been cold, But overall, it's like I look at it, I go, man, I cannot live without you, Jesus. I'm passionate about you. Worship, passionate about worship. I can't live without worship. And it's not playing guitar and singing in front of you guys. It's I need to worship Jesus. I see Him, I know Him, I need to worship Him, I need to be with Him. Can't live without worship. It has to be part of my life. My wife, my son, people I'm passionate about. Can't live, obviously, on one side of the coin. Could you live without Him? If you had to, but I don't want to. There's not a vision in my life that sees that as a reality. Obviously, if something catastrophic happened, right? But I'm passionate about them. I love them. I want to be with them. I don't envision my life without them. And you can go on. There's probably more things. What about things that you do get to do that you're passionate about? I'll get to some of those later on, but passions, the things you can't live without. Okay, the have-tos, if we go backwards now, the have-tos, they're commitments you've made, tasks that need to be done. Right? You've signed up for things, you've been asked to do things. Those are things you have to do, whether you feel like it or not, whether you're passionate about it or not. Stuff like school. Hey, maybe some days you feel like motivated, excited, you're excited to be here, you want to be here. Some days it feels like a have to, some days it feels like a choose to. You know what? Sometimes it falls in that category. And that's why they can ebb and flow between the three, but have tos are those things commitments you've made. They're things that need to be done, things you have to do. Schoolwork, chores, there's just the obvious things, right? Choose tos involve things maybe you don't want to do, but you choose to anyways, again, because of the reward and the consequences. Okay, it doesn't motivate, doesn't inspire me, but I'm choosing to do it because there's a great reward in this. Or sometimes it's, I want to avoid the consequence. And sometimes that's a relationship with Jesus, isn't it? I'm going to choose to follow you so I can avoid going to hell. I want to get away from the consequence of a life of not following you. So I'm going to choose to on the days when I feel like it or not. I'm going to choose to obey you today, whether I feel like it or not, because I want the reward of a life of obedience rather than the consequences of a life of lack of obedience. With me? Things we want to do.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really understanding the difference between have-tos and choose-tos, because the have-tos could be we make a choice to do it anyway as well, right?
Yep.
What sets the two apart? Just the commitment part of it? Like, oh, you made a commitment to this, so you...
They are linked for sure. A lot of them might be linked. Because on one hand, for sure, like the things you do, obviously you're making a choice to do them. But there's always sometimes I think it's more the intention behind it, the perspective going into sometimes you're like, I have to because I signed up for it. Obviously, I'm choosing to do it. But then there's the things you're thinking about, like you're intentionally saying, man, I'm choosing to do this in this moment right now. And you're aware of that choice. Sometimes we're not always aware of the choice. We feel like it's being taken from us. We feel like we have to. We feel like it was forced from us. You with me?
Yeah, no, I understand.
But you go along with it anyways, even if it's being taken from you. You feel like it's being forced from you. But the choose to is you're aware of, hey, this is my decision. And then it's always better to do those have-tos with that choice because it'll probably help your perspective and your heart position to be in a better place. But sometimes that's why I'm breaking it down to 3. Sometimes the have-tos feels like we're forced to do it whether we want to or not. And we kind of willingly go along with it. Does that help clear that up?
Yeah.
But no, they are linked for sure. Choose to. So volunteer shifts, huh? I'm going to choose to do this night. And you understand, hey, there's a reward in giving your life away. There's a reward in serving. There's a reward in the team that benefits from your ability to serve. And sometimes you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to choose to do it because I don't want the consequence. Social gathering. This is an interesting one. I'm going to choose to be around people because there's a reward in that. And sometimes when we choose not to be around people, there's the consequence of isolation, loneliness that gets fed and built up. What you got?
So I was thinking about this the other day because I was talking to somebody about it. The volunteer shifts are not volunteer shifts, I don't think. So we come to the school, they say, hey, you have to volunteer here or here so many times. So you have to do it in order to be in level 1.
Yep.
So it's not really a volunteer shift.
Well,
when does that shift to when you say, hey, this is not my shift, but it needs covered, I'll cover it? We're voluntold, for lack of better words. We're told we have to do it, but it's not volunteer.
it's part of the school requirement, sure.
So when a shift comes up that it's not my shift, email goes out, hey, we need the shift covered. Who can cover it? I'll cover it.
Yep.
Then that's volunteering? Or?
Well, that is volunteering. That is you deciding I'm unwilling to lay down my life when it's inconvenient. It's a need that rises up. I'm willing to meet the need. You serve. Now, I hear what you're saying. Yes, it's a requirement for school. But in the same sense, when Jesus says, no one takes my life, I give it, on paper it looked like they actually took his life. It was forced from him. Yeah. But he didn't live with that perspective. He didn't live with I'm voluntold to give my life. He lived with the idea that I'm choosing to give my life. So even if he was told to do it, commanded to do it from the Father, he still decided to have a different perspective of it's not being taken from me, I'm giving it. And in that subtle difference of perspective is what allowed him to move in authority, confidence, and power, and ultimate love. And so I know what you mean, and that's exactly why we have that moment of decision of, am I going to choose to decide that it's being taken from me, or we're going to choose to decide that, hey, actually, it is within my power to decide, and I'm going to have the perspective of I'm choosing to do this, because you get more reward out of that perspective than if you settle with the attitude of it's just being forced out of me. I get what you're saying. That is a battle, and it is a journey, and I'm not expecting it to change overnight, but it's a good question. Social gathering is getting up early to prep for my son's needs for the days, something I choose to do, not something I want to do always. There's things you do in your life, you choose to do it. If I don't do this, my son will not have a lunch today. He's going to be hungry. I'm going to choose to do it. I love my son. I'm choosing to do it. Thing to do for people, I'm choosing to do it, Even men's Bible study, there's rewards, but also it's like I'm choosing to do it. I see the benefit and the blessing for the guys that come, even for my own self. And I don't really see consequences of not doing it, but other than if I fail to show up, they will think I'm, a flake and all that stuff. But I'm going to be there. I'm choosing to do it, even though it's a ministry that I chose to take this ministry on. It wasn't assigned to me. I chose to volunteer. I chose to say, I want to start this. So there's things in life, again, have tos, choose tos, wants tos, things we're passionate about. All right? And everyone's lists are different. And I believe a lot of times these can flow in and out throughout the day in different categories. If we examine just being here at the school, part of being here in Orville at the Father's house in the school is a have to, a choose to, and hopefully it's a want to. Hopefully it's a passion. You're going to get way more out of it if it's something you want to do. If it's not forced from you, if it's not a choice every single day, if it becomes a passion of yours, like Yeovil, it wasn't something initially I was extremely excited about, but it became something that I owned, that I took on, that I made mine. It became something that I enjoyed. Same as accounting. It became something that I've enjoyed doing. And it's become because I've been able to see the bigger picture behind it. So in being here, part of our calling, my calling and our calling, is that we're here to serve Steve's vision. He's senior pastor, him and Vicky, they're the leaders. His vision, you have to ask, what is his vision then? If our calling here in this school, in this church, is to serve his vision, what's his vision? Well, his vision is promoting Jesus. I want to make Jesus famous. And it looks like many different things, the things that we do, the school that we have, SOT Essentials, the different events, the different departments. All of it is an effort to what? To lift up Jesus, to draw people to Jesus, that they would seek new life, transformation, become the new creation, and the end result, eternal life with him. Pretty good deal. That's his vision. It might look like very different things to accomplish that vision, like every other ministry in the world and church, but that is his vision. So in pursuit of that vision, me being here is intentionally laying aside my personal dreams, my personal visions, and any personal goals that I might have, so I can learn how to serve his, to give my life away and to be discipled by him in his ministry. I understand that. Me serving Orville isn't me coming here to serve my vision. It took me a while to figure that out. It's not about how can this place make my life better. What was it, JFK's famous sermon? Not about what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I love people rally behind that. It's not about what the Father's house can give to you. What can you give to the Father's house? And as you give into it, you're going to find that it gives you a lot in return. If I come with the attitude of, hey, you need to serve my vision, Steve, it's like very quick conversation. I'm sure it would be. Actually, I didn't invite you here so I could serve your vision, Ryan. I'm here to serve Steve's vision, but guess what? In that serving, a lot of times he's like, what do you want to do? Do you have vision for something that we can support? That's how we start all these different ministries and events. People have their own visions that are in support of Steve's vision that he blesses and gets behind. And then all of a sudden we're throwing resources at him or supports at that thing, right? But I didn't come here to serve my own vision. And am I okay with that understanding of it's not about my dream, my will, my vision, but someone else's? Am I okay with that? All right. I love his revelation he shared with us for the last couple of years. The attitude of I deserve nothing, I'm owed nothing, I owe him everything, I get to work for Jesus. This is really where we're going from. The I get to work for, the have to, I choose to. It doesn't always mean we're doing things that we're passionate about, that we want to. The I get to work for Jesus doesn't mean that I'm just going to get to do everything that I've always wanted to do because I'm following you now. And all my dreams come true, my realities come true. No, because there's a choice in it. That's the choice. And so the couple questions are, is your life supposed to be filled with what you're passionate about? Is that like evidence or fruit of a Christianity that works? Now that my life is filled with everything I always wanted, desired, dreamed of, is that evidence that, man, my Christianity works? It's full of everything I'm passionate about.
It sounds good for sure.
Sounds enticing, yeah.
Wasn't Paul pretty passionate about everything he did? Seems so.
Well, and like on the flip side is that you can become passionate about the things that you don't like. That's not really where I'm going today, but you can be. I'm happy to talk about that again or later. Or does following Jesus mean that your life is always satisfied and happy?
Heck no.
No, it doesn't. No.
Right there. No.
No, because ultimately, like our task is about, which we're going to start moving into this direction biblically now, is the not my will but yours. God cares about a lot of things. He cares about the things you actually enjoy, the things you like. And sometimes He's going to give those to you. Maybe He'll actually allow you to move into positions that you are passionate about. He's going to give you things that you always desired and wanted. And sometimes He won't. But that's not the evidence of you have a relationship with Jesus. It's not the evidence of your life is happy and passionate and satisfied that you know Him now. No, because we're going to see what Jesus' attitude was. What got Him out of bed in the morning. So what do you do with that? How are you supposed to live this out if you feel stuck in roles you've been given, if you feel like your life is full of have-tos, choose-tos, all that stuff, not want-tos? What do you do in that place? One of my first prophetic words I ever got was, I actually brought it here. I had to go home and find it. September 26, 2005. I was part of the House of Prayer in my hometown. And my friend, he gave me this note. And looking back, it was kind of the first encouraging prophetic word I ever got. He wrote a verse as Matthew 11, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, let me teach you, because I'm humble, I'm gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, my burden I give you is light." He said, "Hey Ryan, I don't know why, but the Lord gave me this passage for you. God has used it over and over and over again in my life. For me, taking the Lord's yoke doesn't mean giving up. It means surrendering to God, knowing that His desire is better than my greatest dream." And I just was so moved by that. This is a guy that was extremely gifted and talented in many areas. And he's like, my attitude is to live life, surrender to God, knowing that whatever He desires is better than my biggest dream. And he had shared with me dreams of going to the NBA. He was a fantastic basketball player. He had so many talents and abilities. But he's like, I don't care about any of that. What matters to me is that His desire is better than my biggest dream. And I had to start looking at that. Man, what is God's desire? Do I live that way? I remember one time I was living in the Fallbrook house. That's where you guys live, Dimitri and Marina. And I was probably going through one of these phases of, man, what's your will for my life? I feel like I don't have any purpose and direction. What are you calling me to? What is it, Lord? And I remember just seeing this kind of vision in my head. It was like me opening the door and just seeing multitudes of people filling the streets, just filling Southside and beyond. It just went for miles and miles and miles. And he's like, "Are you willing to meet the need?" And I was like, caught me off guard. He's like, "There's people that need me." He's like, "Are you willing to meet the need?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." It's like, "All right, then you're exactly where I want you." And it was just this, I've had this idea man, there has to be this huge destiny, vision, purpose for my life. What if it's much simpler than that? What if His vision, purpose, destiny for your life is actually right now? And you're walking in it right now? What if it's not something that's years and years away and it's off in the distance? What if it's you can actually enter it today? You can actually walk in today. What if it's much simpler than this huge, grandiose thing of, I want you to go to Wall Street, I want you to become a stock trader, and I want you to make millions of dollars, and then eventually you're going to give millions of dollars away. What if it's what if it's not like that? What if it's just, hey, there's a need in front of you. Why don't you meet that need right now? What if that's His vision for your life? Sounds boring, huh? But what if that's His will? I think a lot of times we make His will so complicated. It has to be this huge thing that I have to somehow achieve to and aspire to so I can know I'm in it. And then maybe one day I'll be good enough to earn you show me the picture of what your will is, and then I can actually do it. What if He's no, what if it's just the breadcrumbs are serving? All of a sudden you look back and 10 years later of serving, you're like, man, I've been in your will this whole time. I've been serving this whole time. I'm living in your will. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there are specific jobs, tasks, assignments He has for people, for sure. And He might give you those things. But in the meantime, I wouldn't suggest just stalling and waiting for that revelation of what that assignment is supposed to do. get moving, get serving. And so our ultimate call in Christianity is to live like Jesus. That is what our calling is, to exemplify his attitude and his lifestyle. That includes his mindset, his heart, his behavior, everything about Jesus, what we're called to exemplify in our own lives. And so it gets me thinking, is what got Jesus up in the morning? What woke him up out of bed? What was he passionate about? Do you think he wanted to put up with 12 stubborn guys every single day? Guys that were confused, even to the end of his ministry on earth, his earthly ministry? Guys that he continued to have to fight with and guys, are you so dull of understanding? Do you still not understand? You just think of the words he said to them, even at 3 years later. And then being denied by, still denying Jesus and him being just abandoned by his own guys he'd spent years with. You think he wanted to get up every single day to teach them and show them the kingdom of God? I'm sure there were moments when he didn't want to. It was like, come on, again? You're thick-headed. And yeah, I'm sure there are days he's like, this is my calling. I love that I get to do this. I'm sure there are days he wanted to do it. But what could Jesus not live without? What drove Jesus? And I want to go into scripture here real quick. Is Luke 22. It's also found in Matthew. But in the Garden of Gethsemane, familiar words, he came out and went, as it was his habit, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. Now when he arrived at the place, he said to them, pray that you do not come into temptation. And we know this is right before he's arrested and put on trial and crucified. And he's praying in the garden. He's sweating blood, some scriptures say. He's so stressed. And he withdrew from them a stone's throw and knelt down and began to pray, saying, Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. And yet these famous words, what? Yet not my will, but yours be done. That's his attitude about to face crucifixion. Think he wants to go through that? I don't think so. Was he willing to? Absolutely. Did he choose to? Yeah. Was he excited about it? Who knows? He might have been like, man, I get to have Joe in 2,000 years. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm sure there was some part of his heart that was like, all right, I'm accomplishing my Father's will. This is awesome. This is what I'm here to do. But I also think the human side of him was kind of dreading it. I'm not looking forward to what's about to happen. He's sweating blood. That's how much he's not looking forward to it. And yet his attitude is, doesn't really matter what I want. Doesn't really matter if I'm passionate about what's going to come. If my heart is motivated to do this, doesn't really matter. It's your will be done. Your will be done. I think that's fascinating that's the attitude that he had. Your will be done. And what does will actually mean? Will is what one wishes or is determined shall be done. So twofold. What I want to happen, what I've determined will happen. Someone's will. And it's kind of twofold with this word that Jesus uses, but of the purpose of God to bless mankind through Christ. So ultimately, are also of what God wishes to be done by us, his will, what he wants us to do. That's an interesting direction. It's not what he's commanded us or foretold we shall do. It's what he wants to be done by us. It's like this invitation he's drawing us into his will. It's the things that he wants us to do. And we know his will through what he's commanded. We know his will through the person of Jesus. And ultimately, on one hand, Jesus is the will of God. He was God's plan from the purpose, or from the beginning, from God for all mankind. Jesus is the will of God, as in the Savior, rescue, or provision for mankind into the response of sin and evil. And at the same time, he's the will of God in that what Jesus did and said is demonstrating what God wants us to do. Everything he said, everything he did was what the Father told him to say and what the Father told him to do. We see the Father through the life of Jesus, and so that's also showing us what we're called to do in the will. Jesus is the will of God. What Jesus did is what the Father wants us to do. So it doesn't have to be this complicated thing. If Jesus did it, then the Father wants you to do it. If he didn't do it, probably doesn't want you to do it. Maybe it's not so complicated after all.
That's pretty simple.
Did Jesus do it? Yeah. Did he feed people? Yeah. Does he want you to feed people? Probably. Did Jesus serve people? All the time. Does he want you to serve people? Probably. All the time. Did he give up his life? Yeah. Does he want you to give up your life? No, he wants you to hold on to it. No, he wants you to give up your life too. Everything Jesus did is the will of God. And we can choose to see it that way. And on the other hand, is we get to participate in this will through our own obedience. Right? It's what God wishes for you to do. You choose to be in that or not. You can actually choose to be in his will or out of his will. And so we participate in his will through our own obedience, our intention, our desire, and our choice. We actually have to determine if we're going to be positioned in that or not. And a lot of times our will can be different from his will. Amen? And mainly when I say that, in what way? It's our will is self-seeking. Our will is I want to be taken care of. I want to be comfortable. I want to have my life satisfied, happy. I want my life to feel like it's accomplished. Not bad desires. Jesus also wants you to be taken care of. It just might look different than your self-seeking version of being taken care of. He also wants to provide for you. It might look different than your will for provision. But he wants those things. It's not wrong to have those desires. And we can see our will at play in what we do, what we focus our effort and our attention on. Our work, hobbies, relationships, our pursuits, our values will show us what our will is. Our lifestyle will show us if we're in link with his will for our life or not. So it shouldn't be very hard to see, hey, is our life in connection with his will? Or are there things about your life that are what he wants you to be doing? If there are, then yeah, you're probably linked with his will. If your life is complete opposite to his kingdom and what he wants, then it'd probably be pretty easy to say, man, my life isn't really in the will of God. I'm living for myself, my own desires. You with me?
Yeah.
So our will isn't always bad. Like some of those desires, they're okay to have. But it needs to be aligned with his will and come into submission to God's will in order for us to have the correct mindset and lifestyle that he's calling us into. So are my desires, my pursuits, are they in unison with your desires, pursuits, and wants for my life? And we need to submit our life to him so that his will can trump our will. But he doesn't force you to do it. He gives you the choice to do it. That's his love for you. I'm going to make known to you what I want in the person of Jesus. I'm going to make known to you what I want through his life. But I'm not going to force you to do it. I'm going to allow you to choose it for yourself. And this is the battle, right? That's the battle. My will, your will. I mean, I go through this battle daily sometimes. There's things I really want. There's things I'm selfish about. And I'm like, your will, Lord. That's the battle. I want to submit myself unto you. So let's look at some verses. I'm going to go through a whole list right here. But they're really good. They're really good. John 4. Jesus said, my food is to do the will of him who sent me, to accomplish his work. This is my will. This is my food, to do the will of, this is what feeds me. This is what gets you out of bed. It's what wakes me up in the morning. My food, my substance, the things that nourish me is to do his will. Who sent me to accomplish his work? Matthew, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's an invitation to release it, but how does it get released? Through your actions. Matthew 7:21. And not everyone says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter, but he who does the will of my Father will enter the heaven. Doing his will is a big deal. My food is to do the will. I'm inviting your will to be done. He who does the will of my Father will enter heaven. He who doesn't do the will of my Father will not enter heaven. Matthew 12, whoever does the will of my Father who is in heaven, he's my brother, he's my sister, and my mother. Right? We're family. He who does the will of God, they're my family. John 5, 19 and 20 and verse 30. Then Jesus answered, most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he sees the Father do. For whatever he does, the Son also does in like manner. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself does, and he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. I can of myself do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is righteous, because I do not seek my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me. Again, what drove Jesus, what motivated Jesus to do the will of my Father. Could Jesus do things of himself? He could. So that's not what he's not saying I can't possibly physically do things of myself, but he's operating with the attitude of I choose to do nothing of myself. I choose to do only what I see, hear, and my Father show me to do. Because, verse 30, I'm not seeking my own will. So that's interesting. Jesus had his own will separate from the Father's will. Well, yeah, because he was also fully human. So we have our own will. It has to be in line with the Father's will. He said, I seek not my will, but the will of him who sent me. John 6:3, I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of him who sent me, that of all that he has given me, I lose nothing, but raise it up on the last day. He's talking about people. So part of God's will is that he gets everybody to himself. Is that going to happen? Unfortunately, no. John 9, we know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he hears him. That's a crazy one to me. If you really chew on that one for a while, God doesn't hear sinners. But if anyone fears God and is doing his will, he hears him. Oh, I was looking up that one again this week, and I had to stop on that one for a bit. Oh, if I'm in sin, God doesn't hear me? We've heard Isabel talk about that, but now I found a verse that backs that up. I've heard Steve say it a lot, and it's what? I see your hand. I'll get to you in a second. If anyone's God-fearing and linked, fears God and does his will, he hears him. It's it opens up this connection. You fear God. It's that healthy awe, respect, honor of God, which then leads to surrender and submission and living in his will. That opens you up to be heard by God because you have a relationship. It's not complicated. I'll get to questions soon. Bottom line, his will has to become my dream and my reality. And so if we simplify that, what does it look like for today? Well, again, I want to propose not this grandiose will, destiny. It's this simple thing. What do you see Jesus doing? Maybe that's his will for today. To serve people, to love people, to serve Jesus, to love Jesus. I can go on and on, but I'm keeping it simple right now. His will has to become my dream, has to become greater, like this word I got. Greater than, his desire is better than my greatest dream. That has to be my reality. His will above my dreams. His dreams above my dreams. And so, that looks like servant leadership. We're not going to do a whole teaching on servant leadership, but my question is it a life wasted if you spend it serving? Is your life wasted if it's spent serving people around you? What's cool about that is serving people isn't confined to one location. I have this question a lot in my heart is your will about specific place, location, geography, year, time? Does that make sense? And I'm starting to believe more and more it's less about that. I do think he assigns you, he draws you places for the benefit of what he wants to release into your life through that place, maybe for a season, maybe it's forever. But I'm starting to see his will as it's not so much as this is where you have to be, but you actually get to walk and live out his will wherever you are. And that should actually take some pressure away. If you find a place that's serving Jesus, loving Jesus, that's a place you should probably seek to be around. I want to be in submission to that. I want to be around people that care about discipleship, that care about being mothers and fathers and care about loving Jesus and teaching people how to do that. But if his will is looking like Jesus, you can do that anywhere, can't you? Now, if you're doing that, you better make sure you've learned a lot along the way to set you up with some great safeguards. Because what I'm not saying is giving you permission to go out and just become a church of one, where you follow no one but yourself. That would be not the will of God. Right? And we see this in practical life. It's like some jobs really cater you towards His will, towards serving. And some careers take you away from that. You've got to find the things that help narrow your focus in, draw you closer to His. Is it a life wasted if we spend it serving? If we put His will before our own? When we talk about motivation for Jesus, this is what motivation is defined as: that which moves one toward an action, that which changes, provokes, or impels our very being. Jesus was motivated. He was moved to action in serving people. The greatest in the kingdom is the servant of all. I did not come down to demand to be served. I came to give my life, to lay it down. You can look in Philippians. We talk about that one a lot, so I don't want to beat that one to death, but to have the same attitude in you, which was also in Jesus, who being God did not consider equality with God something to be grasped. Right? He stepped out of that and submitted himself. So he became obedient even to the point of death. He's motivated. What moved him was serving his Father's will. I want your will above my own. I'm motivated by your will. And for me, in choosing to come here, it's been almost 16 years. I've learned these have-tos, choose-tos. I've discovered more of Jesus in that, who He's created me to be. And I've also, because of those have-tos, choose-tos, I've discovered things I'm passionate about that I never would have discovered had I not gone through and submitted myself to that process of learning. And for me, some of them, it's like teaching. Not just in this setting, class. These are things that become passions of mine, but I like teaching sound, teaching sports. I like things that some of the things that I love sharing and teaching people about those things. Again, worship, I mentioned that earlier, but the Bible and apologetics, passionate about going over that stuff, learning more about it. I have only scratched the surface on that stuff, but I love learning about it. I love sharing about that, talking about that. Healing, man, praying for sick and also inner healing. It's just something I love. And I'm pushing myself to do even more of. And ultimately it's okay, which really what this class was going to be titled was not my will but yours, serving because I have to. But in the end, it's okay. Like, again, Jesus had to. It's okay to serve because you have to, because you're learning to become like Him every single day in that process. Have to's, choose to's, wants to.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Refuse Ordinary. We hope you were encouraged, inspired, and even challenged to seek more of who God is and who you are in Him. If you have any questions about the School of Transformation or would like to apply for our next semester, please go to transformationschool.org or send us an email at info@transformationschool.org. See you next time.